Nintendo has a habit of producing gold versions of their Legend of Zelda games. The original Nintendo Entertainment System Legend of Zelda had a gold cartridge, as did Zelda II The Adventure of Link, and also Ocarina of Time. In 2021, a rare gold Legend of Zelda sold for $870,000. And when I was a kid, I got an original limited edition gold version of Ocarina of Time, but I had to destroy it to play it. Well, today I'm going to tell you a story of a different era of gaming, consoles and games releasing at different times around the world, region locking, and why I had to destroy one of my prized possessions. Well, if you like this video, then subscribe for more Zelda content here on Triforce Times. Plus, you can also get exclusive benefits like access to our community Discord, early access to videos and exclusive videos through Patreon and YouTube membership by clicking on the links in the description. Well, as a kid, my parents bought me my first console. It was a Nintendo Entertainment System with the pack-in double game of Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt. Now, I would go on to play my very first Zelda game on this console with my dad. This was Zelda II The Adventure of Link. I don't really remember why I skipped the first Legend of Zelda, but Zelda II is where it all started for me. You know, I loved the Nintendo Entertainment System. I played it all the time. Now, a friend of mine's dad used to repair old arcade machines, and I would go over to his house and we would play arcades together. We didn't have to put money into the arcades, all you had to do was press a button and you'd get loads of credits, and we'd sit there all day playing the latest arcade machines like X-Men, The Simpsons, and also Neo Geo classics. My friend would then introduce me to the concept of importing games from the Far East, as he imported his Super Famicom from Japan, which would later go on to be called the Super Nintendo in the US and Europe. So given he imported the console from Japan, that means he got it earlier than everyone else. The Super Famicom was released in November 1990 in Japan, and actually wouldn't come to Europe until 1992. So imagine the Switch 2 releasing in 2025, and then it not being released in your country until 2027. It's just absolutely impossible to comprehend these days. The interesting thing though about importing consoles in the 90s were they were region locked, so either through the PAL or NTSC system, or through the shape of the console and the cartridges themselves. So this is an important point, and one we're going to come back to later in the story. I remember the summer that my friend got A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo. We would play it for hours and hours on end. This was back before the internet was widely available, so we had to figure everything out, or just wait for magazines to publish tips and tricks. That was one of my favourite summer holidays from school, playing through A Link to the Past, long before anyone else was playing it in the UK. We were figuring out everything through trial and error, no videos, no guides, and that experience cemented my love for the Legend of Zelda. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit and get onto my story about my original gold Ocarina of Time that I had to destroy. So by this time, I was fully bought into Nintendo. I'd played through Zelda games on the Nintendo Entertainment System, on Super Nintendo and on Game Boy, and then we started to hear about a new console in development called Project Reality. And later, that project would be called Ultra 64, and then the final product would be the Nintendo 64. So I simply had to be one of the first people to play the Nintendo 64. So I followed the example from my friend, and I wanted to import the console from the Far East. I gathered up all my Super Nintendo games and the console. I sold that at a car boot sale to generate some money, and I think my parents also must have given me some money towards it as well. I found a company in the back of a magazine who would import the Nintendo 64 from Hong Kong to the UK. The good thing about importing this version from Hong Kong would be that I would get the console earlier, but the bad thing, and something I didn't realise or even know about yet, was the region locking. The Nintendo 64 released in Hong Kong in 1996, whereas the Nintendo 64 released in the UK in 1997, so I'd be able to play the console months before anyone else. I had the money, I found the distributor, and I paid them, and it came in the mail. I was absolutely beyond excited. It arrived and I got Super Mario 64 with it. Yeah, it's just simply one of the best games of all time, but there was an issue. Hong Kong distributed the NTSC version of the console, and in the UK we had PAL versions of the consoles and the games. Nintendo games and consoles used to be region locked around the world, so you had a version for Japan and the Far East, a version for America, and a version for Europe. So a simple example is the Super Nintendo. While Japan and Europe shared the design of the Super Famicom and the Super Nintendo, so the shape of the console, the design of the console, and the shape of the games, you couldn't play Japanese games on a European Super Nintendo. And then the Super Nintendo console and games, they were just a different shape. They were more square in design, so on my friend's Japanese Super Nintendo, if we wanted to play games from the USA, which we often did, you would then have to buy an adapter. You'd have to plug this into the console and it would have 2 cartridge slots. One on the back for native console, and then one on the front for the game that you actually wanted to play. So I didn't realise it at the time, but I had this experience of region locking before. I've got family in Canada, and when I was a kid, I remember going to visit them one Christmas. I got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the Nintendo Entertainment System for Christmas, and I loved the Turtles. I couldn't wait to play the game. My family in Canada didn't have a Nintendo at the time. I had to wait until I got home. We were there for Christmas and New Year. I had to wait over a week. And finally, when we got home, I put the cartridge into the Nintendo Entertainment System at home. I turned it on, and nothing. It just wouldn't play. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know back then that you couldn't play games from North America on a European console. And also back then you just couldn't look up the information. The internet didn't exist as we know it today. So as a kid with a useless Christmas present and a blank screen in front of me, I was absolutely distraught. Well, Nintendo implemented region locking on the Nintendo 64, but it was much more subtle. The N64 from USA, Europe and Japan and Hong Kong, they all looked the same, but they had a subtle difference. The consoles were the same shape, but the cartridges themselves were different shapes. There's 2 small notches on the cartridge, and they're in different places on the USA games and the Hong Kong games. That meant while in theory you could play USA games on the Hong Kong N64, the cartridges wouldn't actually fit in the machine. So I didn't find this out until I ordered the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I pre-ordered it from the USA. I was lucky enough to get an original gold version of Ocarina of Time. It was a thing of absolute beauty. I remember I took the day off school and I planned to play it all day, or play it as much as I could until I couldn't play anymore. And this is what being a video game fan was all about, the anticipation, waiting for the mailman to deliver the game, the packaging. Getting the game before anyone else. It was like Christmas morning when it wasn't winter. I still chase that feeling today. I opened up the game, tried to insert it into the N64 and it wouldn't fit. I just didn't understand what was going on. I had my N64, I had my copy of Ocarina of Time, I had the day off, but for some reason these things did not fit together. They physically did not fit together. I was just thinking, what am I gonna do now? I don't remember exactly how I found out this information, but I knew you could play N64 games from the USA on the Hong Kong machine. I think it was because they were both NTSC machines, although I could be wrong, and do correct me down there in the comments. However, I did find out about it, I knew about it, and I knew what I had to do. I had to somehow make Ocarina of Time fit into my Nintendo 64. So my dad was a carpenter, he had all these tools. I waited for him to get home from work that day and explain the problem to him. He casually said, that's not an issue, we could just cut off the side of the cartridge to make it fit into the N64. After all, it was just simple plastic, you could remove it. Great, I thought, a solution. It's not perfect, but at least I'd be able to play the game. So my dad set up his tools and we put the brand new limited edition gold version of Ocarina of Time into a clamp to hold it securely in place, and then he just started removing the edges of the cartridge with a little precision saw. N64 cartridges are interesting items. At the bottom you've got the cartridge sticking out, it's literally like a circuit board sticking out, so it can plug into the deck of the Nintendo 64. That meant sawing off the corners of the plastic, which meant the saw would be very, very close to the cartridge itself. One mistake and the saw could go into the cartridge, and that would just be game over. The whole thing could be destroyed. Luckily that didn't happen. He removed the corners of the cartridge and I plugged in Ocarina of Time into the N64, flipped the on switch, and it booted up. Finally, I could play Ocarina of Time, but at what cost? Now I had to sacrifice the gold cartridge to play it. Thinking about it now, we could have just taken apart the N64 itself and removed the plastic in the console that was preventing the cartridge from slotting into place, rather than destroying the original gold limited edition Ocarina of Time, but that meant dismantling a whole console. Sounds pretty complicated to be honest, plus we didn't have any guides or the internet for that kind of stuff. These days I've started collecting gold versions of Legend of Zelda games again. I'd really like to build up my collection, and that is very, very expensive. Now I've got a gold version of Zelda II, The Adventure of Link, plus also I've got the limited edition Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch console itself with the gold Joy-Cons. So I would love an original gold Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo Entertainment System, or maybe even a gold version of Ocarina of Time. Although this time, I'll make sure I don't take a hacksaw to it. Well, let me know what you think in the comments. This one has been a different type of video today. It's not a guide, it's not a tutorial, it's much more of a personal story, and I hope you enjoyed it, but let me know in the comments what you think. Well, that is it for this video today, looking at why I had to destroy my gold Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time to play it. And as always, thank you so much for watching or for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for even more Zelda content here on Triforce Times. Also, you can get those exclusive benefits by joining the Patreon or the YouTube membership. Down below you get the community Discord access, early access and exclusive videos as well. So really, really recommend signing up if you possibly can. Games Media is absolutely going through it at the moment, and independent creators are the way to go. So if you enjoy Triforce Times content, then consider supporting me a little bit more. I would really, really appreciate it. Well, thank you once again. Hope you've enjoyed the video today, and I will see you in the next video. But this video is brought to you by Triforce Times Backstage. This is available through Patreon or YouTube membership, and you're going to get exclusive benefits, plus you'll be able to go above and beyond to support Triforce Times. Free content is core to Triforce Times, and you can continue to enjoy these videos that you know and love. However, if you want to enjoy the benefits like early access, our community Discord, shoutouts in the credits of videos, content polls and exclusive videos, then select the tier that is right for you and join Triforce Times Backstage today. So help me make Triforce Times be even bigger and better, plus you're going to get some added benefits for a small fee every month. Well, thank you for listening, and now it's time to go back to the video.